Today is an important day for people with disabilities in Japan. Some of them have travelled long distances to Sendai in the northeast to witness the district court deliver a historic verdict.
Many people have serious disabilities, and they were unable to leave their homes today.
The judge is to rule on a compensation claim against the government, stemming from a now defunct law that allowed the state to forcibly sterilise thousands of people until as recently as 1996. The suit ends decades of silence as victims finally tell their story. Saburo Kita was operated on when he was 14.
The doctor took me to the urology department, even though I had no medical problems and no pains whatsoever. They undressed me and administered a local anesthetic, but despite the anesthesia, I noticed that they were doing something to my lower body.
After an hour-long hearing, the court said the eugenics law had violated the plaintiff's right to have children, but it rejected their demands for compensation. The court also noted that the statute of limitations on the compensation claims had expired.
So the court has said it can't rule on a case that is more than 20 years old. But I think it should have taken into better account the fact that I have been suffering for the past 60 years.
This did not happen by accident. It was a government policy. But the right to procreate is guaranteed by the Constitution.
The law was introduced after the Second World War as part of government attempts to rebuild a poor, defeated nation by encouraging births of healthy children. The measure denied thousands of people with disabilities and mental disorders the right to have children. The victims included orphans, marginalised people, and those who were just considered different. Junko Izuka was among them.
That's me, and that's my foster mother.
After being separated from her biological parents, Izuka was placed with a foster family.
They hated me because I wasn't their child. It was my foster mother who took me for the operation. She didn't explain to me what was happening.
Izuka, who has been married twice, said both her former husbands left her when they discovered she couldn't have children. She spent the past 20 years campaigning for compensation from Japan's government.
I can't stop thinking that I'd like to go back to being the person I was before the operation. I always have the same feeling. I feel as if my life has been taken away from me.
In April, the government gave Izuka and other surviving victims reason to hope when it awarded each of them compensation. It also apologised for the policy, under which people as young as 9 were sterilised against their will.
On behalf of the government, I offer our sincere remorse and heartfelt apologies.
The forced sterilisation scandal has sparked a wider debate about attitudes towards disability in Japan. Since the eugenics law was abolished in 1996, the country has attempted to create a more inclusive environment for people with disabilities. Nobuko Mikata, who's been disabled from birth, says she spent her entire life battling discrimination. Today, the government provides her with round-the-clock help.
Before, I had to contact subway stations several days before I planned to ride a train. In those days, there were no lifts at stations, and it took 5 or 6 members of staff to carry me in my wheelchair. I felt like a burden, and that I made them feel uneasy. But I no longer feel like that.
Mikata is not among those who are forcibly sterilised, but as a person with disabilities, she supports the plaintiff's struggle. The government's compensation amounts to about €25,000 for each victim. But in early June, about 100 people protested in front of MPs' offices, calling on them to significantly raise the amount. Kita, a prominent activist, is among the demonstrators.
all over Japan. More than 200 groups like ours have filed similar lawsuits. We are not going to give up. Our fight goes on.
Japan is not the only country to have forcibly sterilized its citizens. Germany, the United States and Sweden also had eugenics laws, but have since apologized to victims and provided compensation.